talk. I hope all of you guys are preparing for having a fantastic weekend coming up. We have an extra day to take care of ourselves and get some rest, and that's really important, right? So I've been working with more and more women to gain confidence and clarity around taking their business to the next level. And for women, unfortunately, there's a few extra steps we have to take because there's some stuff that is just not necessarily what we were taught when we grow up. So there's more and more stuff that we're finding out about what's the important shit that we have to do so that we can really do this. So people ask me all the time, how do I stay true to my message? How do I take my business to this next level without losing who I am, without diluting my purpose and my intention, and so I can stay who I am and I can do what I'm meant to do. So what's that one thing I have to do? And that's really right. You guys have heard me say this before. You have to get you out of the way first because that's where it starts. A lot of times there are a lot of stories that are going on that are keeping you from stepping up and being really that next level who you need to be so you can take that business to 5, 6, 7 figures and still feel really good about it and be who you are, uniquely you. So if you want to do big things, they don't happen by accident. You have to be very intentional about this. So same thing I always say, you have to work your strategies. Yes, that's really important. And the most important thing, more important than anything, is mindset. So last week I missed you guys because I was leading my mastermind retreat, and it was an amazing retreat. We're up in Lake Tahoe in a beautiful house right on the lake. We had fantastic weather. We got to go swimming in the mornings. We had a little triathlon we were doing. We were going hiking. We were doing meditation. We were doing all sorts of stuff that's really so important to really dive deep into your business, yes, but on the other hand, also retreat, get some mind space, get some relaxation, and really enjoy who you are and what you're doing. So we were doing some really cool stuff, and of course some big stuff came up because when you start digging, it's not always comfortable. So what we noticed right before, there were a few people who didn't even come because they were afraid they would have to put their stuff out there, talk about what's not working, talk about what's not happening for them. And there was some challenges around that. So people really had to dig deep and go, okay, what's going on here for me? What am I avoiding? What am I not doing? And the thing about getting to the next level is you have to start by facing the truth about you. And hey, Anne-Marie, that's not always great, right? You have to actually look at being vulnerable, being open, getting input. And sometimes you don't want input, but when you don't get the input and you don't implement, guess what? Nothing happens. So you have to stay open, and this is about being coachable. So I've noticed this a lot of times. People ask for help, they show up for groups, they show up for programs, they enroll in stuff, but then they actually don't participate. And I've heard people say, hey, I want to be the dumbest person in the room because I really, really want to learn. But when you put it to them and when they actually need to show up and do things differently and hear feedback, it's really, really hard. And that's just human nature. It's hard for everybody. I just experienced that myself in my big mastermind where I was feeling like I wasn't taking it to the level where I wanted to have it. And it didn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. But you just have to show up for it and go, okay, this is not feeling good because I need to make this change. So it's all about being vulnerable so you can improve. And the first step to do that is you have to be coachable. So you have to choose the right mentor, of course, who you really want to hear the truth from. And you have to be around a group of people who you trust enough that you can open up. And I find that really interesting because sometimes people say, I don't know these people. How can I show up like that? How can I open up? How can I put all my insecurities out there? But guess what? it doesn't really hardly matter who's in the room, because as long as you're committed to being coachable and they all show up to be supportive, you have a great group of people. So it almost doesn't matter. So you have to look at, what's the stuff that you're hiding from yourself and from other people. So that's why you're being uncomfortable. And a really big piece around this is look at your resistance. Because when you're resisting the change, well, for one thing, it might not be right. And that's what everybody wants to bring up first. But a lot of times it's really more around, it's uncomfortable. There's stuff you don't want to do. It's going to be a lot of work. And you have to keep coming back to, why are you doing this business? Why are you in this? Why is this so important that you make this change? So you have to get back to your truth, right? And then ask yourself also, I've been talking to a lot of women who've been having a really hard time because they don't have a good support network. So when you make big changes, you can't do this alone, and you're not supposed to do this alone. You're supposed to have a great network who helps you. So that's what you have to create. That's what you have to cultivate. So really look at who in your life is a really good support system for you. And sometimes you have to start by up-leveling your relationships and looking at, who in your life is actually a total bubble popper. Every time you have something exciting going on, they're just all downing it, right? So you have to look at your relationships and make sure that they're all in sync, or most of them at least are in sync with who you are today and what you're doing. So pay attention to that. And if there's somebody who's actually more getting in your way than supporting you, it may be time to release that person, at least for a while, because they're not in alignment with who you are and what you're doing today. So this is all about facing the truth about you and being open and honest and showing up coachable. And this is, in terms of the most important traits really to be successful in this, is being coachable, is being committed, and it's being resourceful, right? So those three, without those threes, you cannot up-level your business. You cannot up-level your life. You just have to show up like this all the time. So, all right, say we got you handled, you're ready, you're coachable, you show up, you're ready to be uncomfortable and have a great time doing it. The next thing is you have to dare to make a really big plan. So another thing that I'm noticing is you have to be audacious about it. And you guys may have heard about the BHAG, right? The big, hairy, audacious goal. And here's the deal. If you're not audacious about your goal, if you're just setting goals that seem reachable or that seem reasonable or that you don't feel like a dumbass saying, it's too small. Because this is what happens. You will never, rarely reach your goal 100%, right? So let's just put it into numbers to make it easy. Let's say you said, okay, I want to make $100,000 a year, okay? And chances are stuff happens, it's slower than you think, it's not going 100% the way you want it to, so you're ending up with maybe 80% success rate, maybe 60% success rate. So that means you're making 60 or 80 instead of the 100. And that's what you were pushing for, right? That's what your radar went for. That's what all your actions were geared towards, this 100K a year. So let's say you get audacious, you get kind of crazy, and you just decide to go for 100,000 a month. Holy cow, 100,000 a month, that sounds completely insane, right? But your entire action system is going to change. You're going to act differently. You are going to plan differently. You're going to have a different support system. You're going to lay out your day differently. There's so many things that are going completely different than if you were going for a much, much smaller goal. So I want to challenge all of you guys who are watching today and who are watching this next week, come up with a crazy goal, something that seems unreachable, and then start tweaking what you have to do to show up. So this is all about being committed. You have to be committed to reach a big goal. So look at what you're doing right now, business and life. Where do you really feel like you're committed, and where do you already know you're not? And that's what keeps getting in your way. Do you have excuses that are constantly coming up? Do you really feel like growing is actually not what you want to do right now? What's going on? Is your family holding you back? Hey Heidi, hi Terry. what's going on in your life, in your business right now that's not supporting you to make those crazy commitments? So I want you to go back today, after you watch this thing, go and write down some really crazy goals that feel like you're completely out there. And it has to be scary. If it's not scary, it means it doesn't mean that much. So think about what you have to do to really scare yourself good today. And keep going back to what this thing is that you really want to reach. You know, in business, okay, maybe it's about the money, maybe it's about the difference you want to make for your family, but keep expanding it. You know, past your family, what else is out there? What are you doing for your community? What are you doing for, you know, your peers? What are you doing for the entire world? This is a really important thing to keep in mind so you can cheer yourself on when things are not going right. So be committed to your goals and really look at, you know, what does it take for me to get that commitment really solid? So this is kind of where you have to start making a big fat plan that's actually actionable. So break it down into smaller steps, right? We can't eat an elephant in one bite. So what's the elephant look like? So really get clear about the parts. And I like, my dogs are supporting me in this too. I like to break it down into 5 pieces that make sense to me. So one of them is getting really clear about the numbers. You know, if I want to go to 7 figures in a year, I break it down into 5, like I make an arc. These are my 5 steps on that way to $1 million. So maybe it's 200,000, 500,000, 750, $1 million, whatever that is for you. Figure out your numbers, know what your end game is, and then break it down into smaller steps. The next thing, you can't just set numbers. You have to make those numbers mean something. And that's because when you give your, say you have this big fat goal, right? Your subconscious is kind of like the order taker. When you tell your subconscious what you want to do, it's immediately going to get into action and tell your conscious what you need to do to get there. So get really clear about, you know, what do you want this money for? Is it important because, hey, maybe you need to remodel your house, or your car is going out, or you want something fancy, you want to go on a great trip. You know, you might want to support somebody, maybe you have something bigger in mind, like some cool charity thing or a foundation you want to build. Think about all those things that are really important for you around money. And notice what comes up. And again, girls, this is something that seems to be harder for women. Own it. Be completely outrageous about it. Allow your wanter to want a whole lot of stuff and be completely unapologetic. There's nothing you have to apologize for. So really dive into this and go, you know, for what would make you feel incredibly spacious, what would make you feel incredibly successful. What is it that you have to want for that? So expand on that. It's totally fine. We're not about scarcity here. So that is being committed to your plan. And then, so once you have the numbers, once you have what that's for, then look at the impact you want to create. And for a lot of people, the impact is a very important piece because it's what keeps you connected. It's, for a lot of women especially, it's really hard to want something for themselves because there's so much programming around doing good, supporting, giving, all that kind of stuff. So look at how your big fat goal is going to help others. You know, again, we go back to the difference you're making for your family, the difference you're making for your community, for your group, for your peers, for the world in general. What's your role in that? And own that, because you have a role. We're all here for a reason. What's yours? So think about that stuff. And then the next thing, so that's, you have your money down now, what you want the money for and the impact. The next one is the solutions. Because it's great to want all this stuff, but how are you gonna get it done? So really get a plan going on with all your steps that you made for the money and for the impact. Now start making the steps for the solutions. So maybe to get to that first $250,000 goal, what's the thing that you have to do that'll get you there? And then what do you have to add to get to that next goal? And what do you have to add? For some of us, that's different levels of business. Maybe that's different levels of how we teach and how we present to the world. Maybe it has to do with getting a different client set. maybe it's a different product. Think about what those things are, and when you when you break it down, it actually doesn't sound nearly as scary as when you're just looking at from kind of the whole in the beginning. So break this stuff down. All right, so once you have your solutions mapped out, even if you don't know how to do them yet, don't get stopped there. You don't have to know how to do this stuff. Just put it out there. So once you have those solutions mapped out, then the next thing is, who's going to help you with this stuff? Because it's not going to be about all you. So you have to really think about, for those solutions that you just mapped out, who do you need on your team to support you to reach this goal? So maybe for the first goal, you just need a really good assistant. For the second goal, you need to hire some experts who can really support you in putting those new systems into place. For that next goal, well, maybe you actually need to step back from some of the things you've been doing in your business, so you can work on your business more and hire people who can do the in the business stuff. Okay? So keep thinking those different levels. So once you have that mapped out, then really think about, who's your personal support system? And again, that kind of goes back to who's on your team already, who's great support to you. Who do you want to add? Maybe a mentor. Is there some sort of group you need to join that will help you stay on track? We can't do this stuff alone, people. This is like, being an entrepreneur is hard work, and it takes support to stay in action all the time. So think about who your support groups are, who your people are, who can help you stay on track so you can reach that big, hairy, audacious goal. And then it's about working the plan. Once you set that plan, it's not like, you keep wanting to go back to it every few months, maybe at least every quarter, and you keep tweaking it, but there's your general idea of what you're going to do, right? So now it's all about working the plan. So keep reminding yourself, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? What am I doing here? What are the actions that I need to take so I can get there? And then keep breaking it down into smaller pieces if it's confusing. So now you have taken care of being coachable, you've taken care of being committed, and now it's time to be resourceful. And this is facing the truth about your business. So you have to know your numbers. And there's a very simple way to start with that. Start with your gross and net. How much are you actually making? What's the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be? And then think about, once all that stuff goes away that it costs for being in business, where do you actually end up with your net? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a truth they really don't want to face, because the numbers might look kind of good when you first start. Your gross is actually pretty sweet. But then once you start taking out all the costs you're paying, all the systems you're using, all the help you're getting, all this other stuff that comes off the top, then it's actually time to face the truth and to realize that your net is not where you want it to be. So you have to know, what's the gross, what's the expenses, what's your net, and be really clear about that with yourself. And you know your end goal, right? Say you're going for those 100,000 a month, then you also have to know, what does it take in your business right now to reach that goal? Let's say it's the gross goal, right? Then you really have to look at, okay, how many leads do you need to create to get the consults that you need, to get the clients that you need? Because that's kind of always how it goes, right? You have the leads, then you make the connection, you have a conversation, then they turn into clients. So the typical numbers, I'm just going to say something really average here. It's like, for every 100 leads, it's 10%. For every 40 leads, you're going to get 4 clients. And it takes four conversations, and it takes 4 conversations to get 1 client. So it's kind of like a 10% conversion rate from the leads to the conversations, then about a 25% conversion rate from the conversation to the client. So, and those are really like pretty low numbers. So think about that. So if you have to create 40 leads to get 1 client, and you need 20 clients to make that $100,000 goal, then you have to look at your marketing in a very different way than if you're not aware of these numbers. So make sure that you really understand your numbers, how you get to your goals. And understand it's not just about the numbers, but it's also about you. Who do you have to be that you can make those numbers? The bigger you set that goal, the more you have to really show up differently. And that's, again, a function of being really, really coachable and committed. Because sometimes there's a lot of stuff to do that is hard. And then you have to stick with it. And you have to understand your reason, and you have to keep showing up. So get real about where you are now, where you want to go, and what does it take for you to get there. And then get really clear on the numbers. Make sure you get the results. And here's the deal, and this is the thing to always keep in mind. As long as you stay in action and you have a clear plan for your action, results are inevitable. Sometimes it takes you a lot longer than you want it, and that's hard, and then you have to keep looking at your grit and knowing what keeps you on the ball. But keep those things in mind. As long as you have a clear plan and you are in action, results are inevitable. So, and that's it. Just face the truth. Get really, really coachable. Be completely committed to what you're doing, and then get resourceful about how you reach those numbers, the plan, and be really clear about this. Thanks, Heidi. So this is it. If you want to know more about this and stay in action and have somewhat of a support group, join our free Facebook group, The Art of Scaling 7 Figures. There are great daily threads. Contribute, help us out, be in the community and get some support. And if you need to know more and you want to be more connected to me, you can also apply for a strategy session with me. Go to 7figureceo.com/apply, all one word, all spelled out, 7figureceo.com/apply, and apply for a strategy session with me, and we'll get you sorted out. So you guys have a great weekend. It's hopefully starting soon for you, and we will see you next week.